Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Cast Dice. Again, I'm Joe, otherwise known as Alpha Alfarius. With me today is the crew as usual, Caramon, Dennis, and Wayne. We're all here today to talk about quite a few things today. A lot's happened this week in the world of Warhammer 40k. Coming off of our Age of Sigmar episode, we were happy to see that the internet is ripe with leaks of the new Shadowspear box set. So we'll be bringing that to you, talking a little bit about that. And we're also going to be talking about what we think makes an army uh, competitive in Warhammer 40k. The different things that it needs to exist, to be playable, and why some armies might fall short, what some armies need, and how this box coming out might actually help the two armies that it's relevant for. So, like we like to normally do, we're going to start off with hobby progress for everybody involved. I'm going to go first today, actually, because I've been working on quite a few things. As far as my hobby progress is concerned, I've been painting tons of random models that I've had laying around because I'm trying to find a color scheme for my new Chaos Marines. I've tried blue, I've tried black, I've tried red, I've tried multiple different Legion colors, and I'm almost out of random sacrificial Space Marines. So, I still haven't come up with anything. Still have no idea what I'm doing. Hopefully, as more things get leaked and released, it kind of inspires me to go one way or another. But as of right now, I'm still deadlocked. So hopefully, by the time the next show rolls around, I'll have a little more direction in the way I'm going. But other than that, I've just been building things, building warp talons, kind of getting the demon and demon possessed side of chaos built up to kind of go with what's coming out soon. So it's been going pretty well. I've been enjoying the building process at least, although I wish I could start painting. I would love to start hearing more things to come out because I'm desperately looking for motivation and inspiration, but that's more or less where I'm at. What have you been up to, Wayne, with your hobby progress?
Not too much from my end. I went and finished assembling some crypt horrors, the charnel throne, and the chalice of Usharan for my flesh eater courts. And according to the shipping information, the abhorrent arch regent I bought on eBay because the box sold out should be arriving tomorrow. So if I get him assembled, then Tuesday's my local game store's AOS night. I might be able to go down there and start getting games in with the new flesh eaters.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so you've been mostly working on Age of Sigmar. I know you're a Chaos player too, so you're probably pretty deadlocked as well, right? And waiting on
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep. I'm waiting to see what comes out and if I'm buying Shadow Spear or going half with somebody or what.
Okay, yeah, so it's pretty much all Age of Sigmar for you, but that's good though that you could get some games in finally. I know you've been waiting for that Arch region for a while.
Yeah.
What about you, Caravan? What have you been up to?
A bit of uh, building over the last 2 days. I finally got around to completing my Predator tank. It was mostly just last touches on the weapons and decorating it with some warp flame gargoyle heads and mm, the dozer blades, even though they're not used anymore per rules.
Nice, yeah, that's for your Thousand Sons army, right?
Yeah, it's I think yeah, it's my only heavy support currently even so I'm itching to get that one painted up now. Primed it today. I'm kind of fixing the priming a bit and then I'm pondering how to start this.
Yeah. Have you played any games recently?
Yeah, on Tuesday I actually played some Age of Sigma
Oh,
with
okay.
my Lizardman. I was kind of mean. I brought two Bastillodons and like 40 skinks.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like everybody's just kind of playing Age of Sigmar right now. It's seems like everybody's just kind of waiting to see what happens. I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of people have been kind of standing back from 40k for a bit while they kind of wait to see how things shake out.
Yeah, it's easier to pick up games at my store for Age of Sigma currently in general. So yeah,
Oh, okay. Is it a bit bigger of a crowd there for Age of Sigmar?
No, not really. The entire shop basically plays both settings as a whole.
Oh, okay.
So everyone has kind of armies for both, but uh, I don't know. It's just currently more Age of Sigma.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
cool. Yeah, my stories it's definitely different. I mean, 40K's got its talons in hard, and a lot of people either just don't play Age of Sigmar or are vehemently against Age of Sigmar, so it's a bit harder to find uh, games, let alone quality games of Age of Sigmar around me. I have to usually do a bit of traveling, which kind of stinks. But Dennis, what have you been up to, man?
Uh, Currently painting up my one of my Skaven Enlist spells. I have a league at the store for Age of Sigmar, so I've been playing a good bit of that. Also did some stuff on my Space Marine Hellblasters. Slowly, sort of, just every now and then, I'll go back to them and do a little bit of progress on them.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just taking your Primaris little by little.
yeah, little by little.
That's cool. You've gotten a chance to play with the new Skaven a good amount?
Yeah, I played a few games, mostly low points. I haven't really got to anything above 700 really.
Oh, okay. So it's like a league?
Yeah, so it's a little escalation league. This last week I played Flesh Eater Courts at 400 something points.
Oh, wow. What'd you take?
Ended up not using Feeding Frenzy, so you can take three guesses onto how that went for him.
Yeah, I'd imagine he probably couldn't chew through the rats.
No, he also had crit players, and he never rolled above six. Or
Nice.
he rolled above six once, so
Wow.
Well, there
a
you go.
real
Statistics.
just yeah, he just got statistic.
All right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, it seems like everybody's been pretty busy with Age of Sigmar. I'll be interested to see how these new releases kind of shake up everybody's 40K involvement. I know pretty soon I'm going to be jumping back into 40K. I've just been at this deadlock waiting for everything to release. Had to tighten up the wallet because I don't want to spend too much money knowing that I might be buying 2 or 3 boxes of Shadow Spear maybe. And however, whatever other stuff is going to come out alongside of it. I know we have a whole bunch of rumor engines that were released in the past 2 or 3 weeks. They probably half of them are probably the box, but there's so many of them that aren't accounted for yet. So who knows what else Chaos Marines will be getting. So until that time, I had to go on lockdown. But anyway, we'll move into the main topic for today, and I know this is a pretty interesting topic to me. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a competitive player, but I still find it interesting what enables armies to kind of thrive in 8th edition and what makes certain armies bad. Even though they seem to have good things on paper, a lot of them just don't stack up. And even in the Age of Soup, some armies can't reach that level even with help. So it's interesting to note what these armies need and what's kind of holding some of them back. So I know, Dennis, you actually brought up this topic. What are your thoughts on what makes an army competitive? What do you feel an army in 8th edition needs right now in order to succeed?
Well, right now, let's go ahead and address the super heavy in the room. You need to be able to deal with knights.
Yeah,
It's not really an option.
yeah. Do
You
you
just need to be able to take knights.
do you,
Uh,
do you think that's going to change at all if the Castellan gets nerfed? Do you think the Knights are still going to be the boogeyman that they are if the Castellan gets readjusted?
I think if the Castellan alone gets readjusted, then they're just going to swap to a couple of different knights, and you're still going to see much of the same thing. It's not going to be quite as oppressive. It's going to be pretty close. They'll really need to touch on what makes knights so powerful in the current meta.
Yeah. What do you think it is that makes them so powerful in the meta right now?
It's a combination of a few different things. The first thing is how the Imperium is able to get screening units up so many screening units for so cheap,
Yeah.
and then you're able to stack a bunch of stratagems on the knights so that they're able to synergize real well just by sitting there.
Yep.
And
Essentially, you could set them and forget them. I mean, they just sit there. They have long range. You don't really have to move them. I don't consider Knights a strategic unit per se. I know a lot of competitive players use them to good effect, but for the most part, you can really just plop them down, they do their job, and you go through this minor list of like three stratagems just to keep them running, and you just run it until it either dies or you win the game. So I, I think a unit that's that powerful that you don't even have to really put that much thought into really needs to be thought about it because the meta has warped around it in a very unhealthy way. So it's interesting to see how it's going to get dealt with. Wayne, I know you have pretty radical thoughts about super heavies. How about what do you think about the meta and what makes these armies successful and what they might need to succeed in the era of the knight?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to be able to deal with it because it's a thing. Whether or not it should be a thing, I have my thoughts on it, but it's irrelevant. It's here. It's not going to leave.
I know your thoughts are that they never should have been here in the first place.
Right. But I mean, other than that, I feel that you have to have enough firepower to remove your opponent from objectives. You need to have enough to be able to control the board, which unfortunately right now is lends itself to being hordes. And then I feel that with how game changing stratagems can be, you need to have a way to game your CP, which is why I think you see a lot of things like the Loyal 32 or the Rusty 17, I think is the AdMech one, the nickname.
Yep.
But you need to have a way to get CP to power your good stuff.
Yeah.
That way you can use them whenever you need to. But I think the main thing is board control. You need to be able to hold your own objectives, obviously, and then you need to have something to wipe out whatever your opponent's heavy hitters are. Because if you do that, like if you have a knight and you kill your opponent's knight or whatever, they have nothing to deal with your knight.
Yeah. Now, this brings up an interesting question, and I'm actually going to direct this at you, Dennis, because you play Necrons. On paper, I feel like Necrons have all these things. What do you think is currently holding them back in the game at large? Because right now, Necrons are constantly buying within the top three worst units in the game. They're always switching places with Grey Knights and vanilla Space Marines. So, what do you think is holding them back, despite them seeming to have all these tools on paper?
I think that really the answer is that they have a lot of these tools, but a lot of these tools. Um, so basically, what you want to do when you play 40k, you want to create your list so that you don't deal with the random nature of dice as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Dice remove a lot of that because you don't really depend on having to roll a lot of high saves because you are at 3+ involved.
Yep.
You have toughness 8. Not many things are going to hurt you. You don't have to deal with your wound tracker because you can use a stratagem to counter that. Necrons have their best anti-tank is the Gauss Pylon, which is D6 shots. The what is it? The Doomsday Arc, which is also D6 shots, D6 damage, and then you have the Seraptech,
Mm-hmm.
which is a melee unit. It doesn't have a lot of tools to get into melee other than just running up to you and hitting you.
Yeah. So if
When
there's
it
a
does against
screen,
melee, it's devastating against knights specifically.
yeah, and if there's any sort of screen in front of the knight, the Thraptic just kind of crashes into that and then gets held up.
Yeah, then you're kind of dependent on your anti-horde to do its work to clear the way.
Yeah.
Sort of like Chronos for Nids. What they do for Nids and Jinxers is that the Jinxers come in, the Chronos shoots everything in their way, and then they charge the knight.
Yeah. So essentially, the thing that's holding Necrons back is they have the tools. They're just too random, too many reliant on D6 shots, D6 damage to really do anything of note.
Yeah, you're starting to see them up in top tables. I don't think they'll be there reliably, but I could be wrong. It's happened before.
Yeah,
So we'll
and
need to see in the upcoming months. They did take third place, and they were top 16 at LVO or something.
yeah, and that was. You think that's because of the Seraptech, or do you think people are just using their other units more efficiently, or both?
I think people are giving Necrons a shot again because of the massive drops in Chapter Recruit. You can get 3 Doomsday Arcs for the price of a Shadow Sword, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like a Shadow Sword, but you're dependent on the random shots or random damage. So if those go well for you, turn one, then you're in a good spot. If you end up not rolling high, then you're gonna be in a rough spot
Yeah.
because the Doomsday arcs aren't all that tough against a lot of weapons.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or actually just remind me in general. The Castellan's weapons. What's the damage profile on the Castellan's weapons? Are they high damage or are they like D3 or 2 damage mostly? I
They
forget.
have a lot of high damage weapons, but they also have a couple that are like plasma or something. So the
Okay.
Castellan isn't going to be able to murder a Doomsday Arc by itself, but it's toughness 6 of a 4 plus save. So if
Yeah.
you're in range of your basic weapons, those are
Yeah.
going to be fine
So,
against it.
so it's high powered, high damage weapons are going to bounce right off the Doomsday Arc. So the Doomsday Arc has actually some game into the Castellan.
Yeah, so it's a mild anti-meta sort of thing.
Yeah, so Necrons can do kind of well as a mild anti-meta, which is why they seem to be enjoying some more success than they have normally had. Up until this point, they haven't had much, and I know the Seraptic has done much to improve them as well. I seem to be seeing that in a lot of lists. So
Yeah, I think the Seraptic is popular because it's reliable anti-tank, and you really just need to clear out the hordes.
yeah,
So you
D-
take Seraptic and you take the Tesla, which you're taking anyway, and you blast out the horde. It's the same thing with Gene Stealers and Chronos.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure most of us have probably seen that list
yeah,
from Tyranids.
yep,
Not as much from Necrons, because it's not really what you expect, but
yeah. Um, the Seraptic does not have quantum shielding, right?
nope. It
Okay,
has a 5 plus invuln. It's basically a melee knight.
okay,
Um, so the melee is very very strong. It has some guns which are all right. They're not really anything to write home about, but they're not bad for sure.
yeah. Uh,
They can weaken some stuff, maybe clear out some things on your way there tonight.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I could definitely see Necrons being a sleeper pick now that more people are starting to give them a chance. I think Necrons might start to see a little more success. I think, like I said, the tools are there on paper. It seems like they might be a little too swingy for competitive players to want to bring to events where they try to minimize, like you said, try to minimize the swing of dice to give them the best chance. So that might account for a lot of why we don't see a lot of Necrons. But I think casually they seem to be in a good place. Would you agree?
Um, I think casually they still have the same issue. Is that when they work fine. When they don't work, they really don't work.
Yeah. So it all depends on
Um,
dice.
yeah, they're a little bit too dependent on dice. I feel I don't like I don't like the depending on a bunch of random rolls
Yeah.
to succeed. It's sort of like old Gene Stealer cults. They just got their codex and they're looking very good.
Yeah.
The old Gene Stealer cults was you rolled a 6 and you won, or you didn't and you lost.
Yeah, it was very swingy. I know that's kind of how knights were at the tail end of. When did knights? Were knights out in seventh edition, or am I thinking of early eighth when?
Knights were Knights were out, but they weren't really they didn't really get their own full fledged codex with all the extra bells and whistles until eighth, I don't believe. I think they
Yeah.
had
I think
supplements.
they had one in sixth and seventh because it caused some problems because I remember when seventh came out they redid the Knight Codex and they were like this codex has been out for 4 months and they invalidated it.
Yeah, I remember something like that because I remember in seventh edition the problem was you would see these pure knight armies and they were what I call armor skew lists, where you either had the tools to deal with them or you didn't. So you either auto won or auto lost, and that was just it in seventh edition. You either brought enough to deal with the knights or you didn't deal with them at all. If you tried to
Yeah,
bring,
seventh edition sort of had the arms race of destroyer versus high armor versus
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a mess.
Now, Necrons aside, because they seem to be slowly clawing their way back up from the bottom, I'd like to talk about the probably the undisputed king of worst armies right now, and that would be Grey Knights. Uh, Wayne, why do you think Grey Knights struggle so much in the meta right now?
Well, not that I'm too experienced with Grey Knights, but from what I've seen, they don't have the options. That's pretty much it. They supposedly got buffs in, chapter approved, and it looks like it's only, oh, we lowered some of your points. I them changing the psychic powers was a rumor that didn't come, right? Them
Yeah,
getting the full smite.
yeah,
Well, that they got nerfed on smite because people were abusing smite otherwise, so they screwed them on it. I just don't think that they have any of the real options to deal with any of the things that you encounter. I mean, in any sort of serious play, like I've heard they're not terrible if you're just going to the game store and screwing around playing games, but
yeah.
anything seriously, they'll just get walked all over.
Now, here's a question I'm going to pose to all of you. So, anybody who has a decent question or answer, rather, feel free to chime in. Um, we live in the era of soup right now. Why are Grey Knights not able to fill these holes like other armies are? Why do they seem to not be able to thrive in the era of, hey, bring all the best stuff from every book? Why does that seem to be a case for them?
Well, you have to look at the Grey Knight Codex, and you have to look at it, and you gotta say, what purpose will this serve in my list? With Knights, you bring Castellan, you know what it's gonna do.
Yeah,
With Admech, you bring the Rusty 17, you know what it's gonna do.
yep,
Um, you don't see many Space Marines for much of the same reason, although it's not quite as bad for them as it is for Grey Knights.
yeah.
Grey Knights, they bring Stormbolters, they bring Grandmaster Dread Knight, and they bring Smite, and none of those three are particularly impressive in command.
Now, Grandmaster Dread Knights are actually one of the few things in the game that still get a 2++ save. Uh, they seem like they'd be pretty good on paper. What's keeping people from just running a Grey Knight Supreme Command with him, Drago, and like a Librarian? Because they all seem to be pretty solid units in their own right.
Most lists are
Ma-
going to be able to deal with a 3++ invulnerable save from the Castellan, and the Grandmaster Dread Knight does not have quite that level of threat or durability. So dealing with a 2++, you lose half your damage, half the damage that you're going to get through. But the Grandmaster Dread Knight also has less ways of dealing with it.
may I?
Yeah,
I think the issue with taking a Grey Master Dread Knight Supreme Command would be it's kind of expensive. I mean, it's Dread Knights, 205 points minimum for one of them, so you run like 600 points already.
yeah.
And second, why not just take a Blood Angel Smash Captain troop? You can hide them. They do probably a similar amount of damage, and they are probably cheaper too. So uh, they get outdone.
That's true. Yeah, I guess thinking about it like that, I mean, it comes down to like points and efficiency. How much are you going to get out of this unit for the points, and is there something else? I mean, I guess that kind of works against Grey Knights in a way. Thinking about them like, why can't they succeed in an era of soup? Well, because it's an era of soup, you could just find something else that does their job better. So I guess in some ways, soup can kind of be a double-edged sword where you think, oh, this will be good for plugging up my weaknesses, but then it's like, well, actually, there's no real reason to take this army at all because I could just do its job somewhere else for cheaper. So I guess that's probably the crux of where Grey Knights are at. I think they're a cool army and they have some cool units, but yeah, like you said, the Grandmaster Dread Knight doesn't seem to do anything that some other army can't do for cheaper.
I think that's a problem in general, and that's just something that the age of soup exacerbates. That everything becomes, if I want to take X, is it worth to take X or take Y? And Grey Knights fall into that, like you said, everything that they do, something else can do just as better or just as good, if not better, if not cheaper.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
think that would be solved if soup wasn't a thing. It would still be the problem. They would face the same problems if you weren't allowed to take a bunch of units from Kyrium and run them in games. The having that option there, and Grey Knights still aren't being taken in any situation just helps shine a light on just how poorly the codex is doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, they definitely need more.
I mean, I agree with that to a degree because even right now, and I mean even in seventh edition, every edition before this, if you wanted to play the army, you'd play the army regardless of where its level was in the meta. But even more so right now with Grey Knights, unless you want to play Grey Knights, you're not playing Grey Knights. So even with soup, without soup, I don't think that would make anybody new play Grey Knights. It would still be just the Grey Knights players playing Grey Knights, and they'd be enjoying the same amount of success. So I really, yeah, I don't think getting rid of soup or changing any of that, I mean, which would be a discussion for a whole different episode, would solve any problems with Grey Knights particularly. Um, they just seem to be in a dire need of a codex rework, I think. They need a few more options, and they need something that kind of sets them apart from everybody else in the Imperium, because right now they just don't bring much to the table, it seems like. They don't have the bodies, they don't have the reliable ways to deal with super heavies on their own. Um, they've got okay mobility, but you're still paying a premium price tag for a Space Marine stat line, which I think is the true crux of the issue with Grey Knights. Unfortunately, their units, their basic troops are all tied to that basic Marine stat line, and they're supposed to be an elite army, but I don't feel like you can operate as an elite army with the basic 4 strength, 4 toughness, 1 wound stat line. I just don't think it's possible, not with their point cost. I don't think the ability to deep strike them, which was massively nerfed in the transition to 8th. I don't think the that ability to deep strike and a storm bolter is worth their price tag because they die just as easy as any other marine would die.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Their whole thing was that they were elite Space Marines, and now they're not. Like, that's taken by Primaris. As far as I know, there are no Primaris Grey Knights, so they don't do what they do anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing too. Not even to think about what Primaris did to them. I mean, Primaris are more survivable with their new guns with the Beta Bolter rule. They almost have as many shots as a deep striking squad of uh, a strike squad. If a intercessor squad stands still, they're going to get the same amount of shots as a strike squad that deep strikes, even though they have storm bolters and the other one has their bolt rifles. Um, they're more
Aren't bolt rifles
survivable.
better anyway?
Yeah, because they have the AP.
Yeah.
However, Grey Knights can get pretty good if you use Cybolt ammo, but I mean that's still a stratagem. I mean you'd want to take a big block of them to really leverage that stratagem, but then you're risking morale losses on an already expensive army. It seems like they're kind of a mess as far as a book goes. They kind of need a full rework because they don't hit any of those major points that we've talked about that kind of makes an army capable of competing in 8th edition.
Yeah, one thing I saw thrown around that I don't think it would help is if Grey Knights got to ignore the deep strike restrictions, like if they could still do a full null deploy turn one deep strike, but I don't even think that would really fix them.
I mean, it would help them a hell of a lot. I mean, they could wipe out pretty much everybody's screen turn one, which would be nice. But I mean, does that really fix their identity issues? I don't think so. Right now, they're just gray Space Marines with Storm Bolters. There's nothing really about them that they don't have an identity. Um, their smites are nerfed across the board, even on their heroes, which I find very, very weird. Most of the heroes in Thousand Sons get to do normal smites. I don't understand why Grey Knight's heroes, apart from Drago, I think Drago's like the only one. Everybody else does has rights of banishment on their war scroll, so they only do the 1 damage smite unless they're versing demons. And even against demons, demons have game into Grey Knights, so it's like even their best matchup isn't really that great. It just seems like Grey Knights was a design failure from the ground up, and I think they might need to go back to the drawing board on that one because they just don't hit any of the points they need to be successful.
I think any units that wear power armor or have that stat line generally will need a redo on their codex.
what do you think could be done to that stat line? I mean, I know people have kicked around the idea of 2 wound Marines. I mean, but then you're stepping on the toes of Primaris now. Like let's just say Chaos Marines for just for example's sake. You all of a sudden you make Chaos Marines 2 wounds. What does that make Primaris now? What now makes them even worth having around if you're just going to make the old Marines two wounds anyway? What do you think could be done besides just increasing their wounds to 2?
I think we really need to look over what sort of you need to look over the point values and everything of the game as a whole. Space Marine, Tactical Marines being 13 points. That's not good or bad in itself.
Yeah.
But then you look at TAC Marines, they're 13 points. Primaris Intercessors are 16 points.
Yep.
More room, more wounds, more range, etc.
Yeah. For 3 points.
And then you look at Imperial Guard. Okay, you get 3 Imperial Guard for 1 Space Marine, and it's 40 points for unit of Imperial Guard versus 65 for Space Marine. So
yeah.
Those sort of things just sort of stack up, and then you look at how stratagems work, and those things stack up, and everything just sort of piles on top of the base points cost and the base stat line.
Yeah, I feel like the structure of 8th edition in general kind of works against the power armor armies, only because there's so much reliance on um, points efficiency with output and ability to receive damage, but then there's also the efficiency of stratagems. What would you rather use? Let's say, take Chaos for example. Would you rather use a Endless Cacophony on 5 Chaos Marines, or would you rather use it on a unit of Obliterators? You always want to try to get as much out of every stratagem you use. I mean, every CP is precious, and the more bodies you take, the more mileage you get out of every stratagem. Um, like Let the Galaxy Burn for Black Legion. You can use it on a unit of 5 Chaos Marines, or you can use a unit on 20 Chaos Marines. You're going to get a lot more out of it using it on the block of 20. But going up to 20 Chaos Marines is 1, expensive, 2, not that durable, and 3, atrocious in the morale phase. So it's everything that 8th wants you to do, I feel like isn't in the cards for these power armor armies, and they suffer for it. It kind of works against them.
Yeah, if you look at Adeptus Custodes, who was a semi-successful elite army, you see the kind of stat line that you need to make that work.
Yeah.
They're all like toughness 5, they all have in bones, they all hit on 2s.
Yeah.
Death Guard 2, you know, they all have very high toughness. Toughness 4 doesn't mean as much as it was.
Yeah.
A 3+ save doesn't mean as much as it did.
Nope.
Whereas from 7th to 8th, low value saves got a lot better because AP across the board went way down.
Mm-hmm.
Low or high armor saves got a lot worse because AP across the board went down, but now they affect the high armor saves as well. So they're not as survivable, but they cost the same amount of points.
Yeah. The major one of the major crux of it is I don't think this many armies. I mean, 40K's got dozens of armies. You're essentially trying to fit all of these armies into what comes down to 4 tiers of power. If you take a D6, you remove the 1 and the 6 because you can't really put armies or stats on that tier. So you've got 2 through 5 to work with. How tough are you going to make a unit? And you don't have, when you've got so many wildly different armies, you don't have the room to really differentiate them, to tune them, to make them, because just a one dice swing changes things so much. Look at how much of an impact -1 to hit has had on the game. You're just ticking the dice up once, and it radically changes the amount of times you hit. Whereas you take a save, you make it 1 better than it would be. You're saving so many more wounds. You can't fine tune elite armies because just moving them one place up or down changes them so massively. You can't do much. I mean, Custodes are probably the best elite army right now. Um, you can make a case for Death Watch right now because of their tools, but uh, Custodes feel right as an elite army. But now they occupy that spot, and there's no spot above it or below it. Space Marines are already, Primaris are already in that spot below Custodes, so you can't really tune them up or down without making Custodes worse and then no longer good, and you can't turn Primaris up because then they're just the same as Custodes. There's not a whole lot of design space.
I think this. I think what we're going to see is that we're going to see a lot of the Space Marine units. They might eventually get cheaper. They already cheapened up the intercessors, and you're seeing them start to take play. But like you said, you move one dice, one place up. That's a lot. That's a lot bigger. But if you move 10 dice, and those 10 dice are trying to do threes,
Hmm.
and you have 10 dice trying to do fours, the three is going to be better. But if you have 10 dice trying to do threes and 15 dice trying to do fours, then you're talking about something completely different. That's a little bit
Yeah.
easier to balance.
Yeah, changing the points, as much as people say that changing the points doesn't really fix the cause. Unfortunately for Space Marines, it seems like the only option they got, only because of they've kind of written themselves into a corner with the rules and with the way the game is structured fundamentally. Um, y- that's really the only thing you can do. And I've mentioned this before, but I can feel and kind of see this shift in GW wanting to differentiate Chaos Marines from Loyalist Marines, in that I feel like you're going to start seeing Chaos Marines get really cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to drop down to like 8 or 9 points a model eventually, because it seems like with them getting new models now, we know that Chaos isn't getting the Primaris treatment. We're keeping the OG Marines. So more than likely, it looks like they're shifting Loyalist Marines to a more elite play style, giving them an extra wound, making them a little more expensive but still points efficient, and they're cheapening Chaos Marines, making them hoardier. You're able to put more bodies out there, and I think that might be kind of the sweet spot for where they need these two power armor armies to be. You might actually see that same thing happen to Grey Knights. Their troops will get cheaper by just virtue of being regular Marine stat lines. Uh, in this transition of Primaris to Elites and Chaos to Horde, I think it also does a good job at giving these armies more personal identities, because for the longest time, Chaos has just been a mirror of Loyalist Marines. So it'll be interesting to see how they start to diverge these two armies from each other. I know.
Yeah. Oop, sorry, I cut out.
What were you going to say?
It was just more along the lines of what you were saying in terms of the power, but you can continue your thought. I'll hop in.
Well, I was actually going to ask Wayne, because I know you play Chaos Marines too. Are do you think I'm off left field, or do you kind of get the same feeling I got, that it feels like Chaos is probably moving more towards like a, I wouldn't say horde, but they're going to be definitely a more hordy army than they are currently.
I mean, I could see it. I think it sort of makes sense because if you think about it, they have the whole visual of the pits of hell opening up and demons and fallen angels, as they refer to them as, spilling out of the bowels of the abyss. So that is a kind of cool thing.
Yeah. I think it's really the best way to go about giving Chaos some identity without being cheap and just making them Primaris too, and and keeping within the whole just follow in the footsteps of the Imperium kind of thing. I would rather them do that, change the structure of Chaos at its foundation, than to keep continuing on with just making them mirrors, because that's gotten stale over the years. What were you gonna say, Rob? If
It was mostly similar to what you were saying before. It's just it seems, and I play some 40k, not as much as I used to. I mean, I sold my main army,
yeah,
but it's just that now it seems like Chaos and Imperium. You're talking about power armor factions versus Grey Knights. Why aren't they as good as an option as Custodes or some other types of Marines or anything else regard? It's just that when everyone has access to everything,
yeah,
and so many things occupy the same niche, there's there's not, like you said, there's not really an incentive. Do you want, scissors made of titanium or scissors made of cardboard? When you're going against tissue paper versus,
Yeah,
you know, it's just it makes it really tough to make those choices. So, when they balance it one way, they have to look at it, say, oh, well, how is it going to be when everything in this codex is used with Brigade of Guard, or how's it going to be when you take Knight Castellan with a
yeah.
cheap, CP battery?
Which
And I
that's
think something like Graves, I played against you with Grey Knights. I don't think you had the codex though, but again, it was something where uh, yeah, it's just I can see why they'd be in a rough spot just in general because they do what everything else does, but they don't do it as well and as efficiently.
yeah. And that you touched on an interesting point because it's actually one of my biggest pet peeves with Eighth Edition right now. And I'll disclaimer this now. I like 40K a lot. I like the lore. I like the models. I've never been a biggest fan of the rules, and unpopular opinion as it may be, I'm not a huge fan of Eighth Edition at its core. Now that that's out of the way and everybody knows where I stand, feel free to flame me in any comments. Um, I feel that I don't like that a Knight and Guard player can affect the army of a Blood Angels player. We saw Blood Angels take a massive nerf because of the way that Guard and Knight players were using Smash Captains in their armies. Now, you've got little Jimmy over here who loves his Blood Angels, and he was having a lot of fun playing them. Little Jimmy now can't play his army as well because of somebody who plays a different army. I don't like that GW is balancing units against the entirety of Imperium and Chaos. I never felt that was a viable or sustainable practice because you've got a lot of people that like to play mono armies, and I don't feel it's right that competitive players who are souping armies because of one unit leveraging really well with some other book, you can nerf somebody else's army based off somebody who's not even actually playing that army. It doesn't sit right with me, and it's one of the biggest gripes I've had with 8th edition since its inception. I just see so many uh, mono builds and so many books get nerfed based off the actions of somebody who's not even actually playing the army, and I just don't feel that's right. I don't know. Does anybody want to defend that practice?
I think it's better that we have soup because that lets them. When you go to tournaments, you have people and they'll usually play an army.
Yeah,
So you have the Grey Knights, you'll have the Necrons and everything, and you'll see the best of the best.
yeah,
When you open things up to soup, and you can take whatever models from whatever army in your army, immediately you'll be able to find out what units are in balance.
yeah.
Immediately. It
Now,
will take day one from the codex, you'll be able to figure out what units need to be tuned. They're overtuned.
yeah, but are they overtuned within their own book or are they overtuned within the scope of soup? I mean, my issue is the competitive players only make up like 1% of the player base. I mean, competitive players are not the majority. So the majority of casual players aren't playing soup lists. A lot of them are playing mono faction armies. So why should the majority of the player base have their books trashed because competitive players leveraged one unit from it, and now their book doesn't work as well as it used to because a guard player used a smash captain in a way that uh, destroyed a tournament. I mean, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't seem fair to the majority of the player base that could give a shit less about competitive play.
Or if someone else from the book used that Smash Captain, it would still be in balance, right?
But would it be
Well,
as
is the issue the Smash Captain or how it fits?
yeah, like the Castellan, for instance, that's a perfect example. Is the Castellan, is it too strong? Yeah. Is it as oppressive as it is in a pure knight army? Hell no. The only reason why it's even close to as impressive as it is because it can leverage guard CP. I mean, you've got guard feeding it CP. It's able to stay unkillable. It's able to constantly shoot at its full skill. It wouldn't be able to do that in a pure knight list. So now the Castellan is pretty much primed to get nerfed into the ground. And all that's going to do is hurt the night players. That's going to hurt night players, and competitive players are just going to move on to the next thing. So they're like competitive players are like destroying everything in their wake. As they move along, they latch on to different things, they ruin other people's books, and then they just move on to the next thing once that thing gets nerfed into the ground. And then you got a bunch of casual players sitting there with nerfed books that it doesn't those things weren't even broken within the confines of their own book. That's why I never agreed with Soup in the first place. I feel like it's a balancing nightmare because now you're not balancing things internally within their books, you're balancing things across the scope of Imperium, and that's one, unrealistic. I mean, we talked earlier, you know how many models and data sheets exist within the game. I mean, you're trying to balance thousands of data sheets against each other now instead of just internally balancing a book. That's why you've got books like Tau, Necrons, sort of now, Orcs are solid. Those books can feel good because they're internally balanced. Even Tyranids are a solid book. They're internally balanced. They're not being affected by outside sources. But Chaos and Imperium right now, I consider them a mess because a lot of the majority of the player base is getting nerfed based off the actions of competitive players who aren't even actually playing their army. I just don't feel like a guard player should be able to nerf a Blood Angels player. It's it's
If we're
absurd.
being real, like those things are not necessarily the case. It's just the direction they take with balance. Balance is going to be skewed either way.
Yeah,
Guard book can run. You can run mono guard. You'll be fine.
yeah. Oh,
But
I'm not debating that at all. I mean,
Yeah, but you can't run mono Blood Angels and be
you
fine.
can't run mono blood angels and
anymore.
That's not because
You used to be able to.
destroyed blood angels.
You
Games Workshop destroyed blood angels.
That's
Them
true.
allowing you to take blood angels unit in a guard army. You can take You can take guard units in a knight army.
Yeah.
You know, you frame it the same way, and the guard codex is surprisingly still there.
Yeah.
It's still strong. It's been strong since the beginning of 8th edition. It's going to continue to be strong.
Yeah. I mean,
Right, but the issue is take something that's not strong by itself, but it fits in the puzzle just right. You know, like you said, the Blood Angel.
I think I think me and you actually agree. We're saying the same things, but in a slightly different way. I understand what you're saying, and I know that yeah, it's GW that absolutely destroyed Blood Angels. But when they first came out, Blood Angels was actually a pretty successful mono codex. You saw a lot of builds doing well. You saw a lot of Death Company, a lot of Sanguinary Guard. You had the Smash Captains, and they were doing pretty well. I mean, this was back before Loyal 32 really started taking off. Um, but the book as a whole was pretty good. It didn't really start getting bad for Blood Angels until the nerfs due to competitive play that limited deep striking and nerfed the Smash Captain. And then now you don't see Blood Angels at all. And I think it just, I understand that that's the way the game is now. So it is what it is. You have to work within the framework of it. I feel on a fundamental level that it's wrong. I don't think that somebody else's army should be affected in that way based off of how one unit interacts with a book that's not it. Like a book should be nerfed based off its own merits. Once you start nerfing different units for how they interact with guard, then you're left with books that otherwise would have been pretty internally balanced, but now they're underpowered, they're broken, they don't have the tools they used to have. And nothing was more evident with that than Blood Angels. They got absolutely gutted. I mean, the Smash Captain was just a cherry on the top. What really gutted them was the changes to Deep Strike. I mean, really the only thing they were really at the time the only army that was really leveraging that with any sort of success. I mean, other armies could do it, but Blood Angels were the only ones that could do it well. And even the pure Knight Blood Angels armies weren't just absolutely smashing tournaments. I mean, they were taking ones here and there. And I remember commenting quite a few times that, oh, that Blood Angels army is really fluffy and cool. I'm glad that won. I'm glad that did well. And it would pop up here and there. But then uh, then it shifted into the Loyal 32, the Knight, and the Smash Captains, and then after that it was just a wrap. And I don't know. It's just to me, my personal opinion, it's a disappointing design direction because I feel like you are ruining the internal balance of books for the sake of how they interact with each other in a format that only competitive players play, because you don't see your average player running the Loyal 32 and Knight and Smash Captains. It's just you don't really see that in casual play. You don't see that in pickup games. So I don't understand why it's having such an adverse effect on all these different books.
If I may.
If you may.
So, I 100% agree with you, but I want to point out the reason why, and I'm going to control myself because this is easily a rant. The playtesters only see that. So the feedback that GW is getting from their playtesters, which let's be honest here, are a lot of the ITC tournament players, are this unit is too good.
Yeah.
Except they're not prefacing that by this unit is too good when you take this unit and this unit and this unit across 3 or 4 different books. That's your problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's disappointing. I don't know if any of you know this. Dennis, you might know, or Wayne, one of you might know. When the play testers are testing the game, are they playing ITC or are they playing GW missions?
Nobody knows. They're under NDA. They don't
Uh,
say.
the only the only things I've been able to find on what the playtesters do is that um, have you seen the old White Dwarf list, like near the beginning of 8th edition, where they take these bizarre lists and pit them against each other?
Yeah.
That's the sort of games that they would be playing.
Okay.
Games Workshop would walk up to them and say, "You're going to play this against this," and they're going to say, "All right, I guess I am."
For better or worse, okay.
Yeah, so like the Necron player would be like, here's a couple monoliths and Trazen and 3 Doomsice against 30 Banshees and the I don't know, whatever the wing guy is.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Um,
The Necron and the Eldar player look at each other and they say, but why?
yeah.
And
Uh,
so I'm not sure what that's what I've heard. I would hope it's not that. It could be. It could not be. I'm not 100% on that. But it seems that they're listening to what the competitive scene is doing more recently.
yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
I
Because
do.
regardless of what you have the casual people, and casual people absolutely play the game more than competitive people. But when you play the game as a casual person, you're trying to have fun.
Yeah.
We're all trying to have fun. I'm just trying to move a bunch, 30 plastic toys against your 50 plastic toys and roll dice.
Yeah.
When competitive players are playing, they're usually playing for money and they're playing to win.
Yeah.
So being that you remove a lot of the unreliability of casual statistics when you go competitive.
I guess it comes down to a fundamental difference in outlook of the game. I mean, I understand and I agree with what you're saying 100%. I mean, I get where you're coming from. Um, to me, again, I just don't feel like I don't feel like it's fun to be playing something, really enjoying it, and then the next thing you know, based off something that you have nothing to do with, your army doesn't work the way that you were having fun with anymore. I feel like that's anti-fun, and it kind of sucks.
I
So,
mean, that's going to happen whether or not it's a codex release or changing editions.
yeah, I mean,
I played Necrons, right? And I went from just outside top 5 being the gatekeeper army. Either you could beat Necrons or you weren't playing that game.
yeah,
And went to Index, which was, the dumpster. I've been sitting in my landfill.
yeah. Hey, I'm trying to get in. I'm still trying to get in there, so pretty soon. Soon it'll happen. I mean,
Soon. I don't think that Chaos will ever truly be in the dumpster as long as they have access to so many of the tools. The 2 Primarchs, at least, at minimum, will keep them out of being the worst army because
hovering
those
around the
models
dumpster.
are very powerful just on their own.
We can look in the dumpster, but we can't jump in. See, I
Yeah,
don't.
you can be the garbage collectors.
See, I don't like that. This is that fundamental difference in mindset I'm talking about because I don't play Death Guard or Thousand Sons. I don't give a fuck about their Primarchs. Uh, at best I'm playing Black Legion, or Word Bearers, whatever I decide to paint my guys as. But I'm not going to be using those Primarchs because I'm not entering LVO. I'm not going to Adepticon. So
I mean, you
Chaos.
might not be, but that's the way that the edition is designed. So
Yes, yes.
you can't really,
For better or worse, you're correct about that. Yes.
yeah, for better or worse, the casual scene might include soup and might not include soup. I think the existence of armies like Yannari have necessitated soup.
Yeah.
I think that Yannari being introduced in 7th edition really skewed the way the game worked from then on.
Well, Inari was a mistake, and we all know this.
Yeah, well, Yannari's here now, so either you give people this Chaos Imperium soup, or you completely remove Yannari from the game, and I guess you figured out which way Games Workshop wanted to go.
I mean, I understand and I agree. However, you've got codexes like Tau, like Orcs, that can compete on their own merits. I don't understand why they need Soup to compete with Inari. I feel like Inari could have been its own thing, and all these codexes could have also been at the level of Tau, Orcs, whatnot, Tyranids. Guard can compete on its own. So I can't see. I don't see that as a valid excuse for just opening up. The only reason I see Soup as the most valid excuse I see for Soup is the fact that it sells more models. I think point blank period. That's probably why GW does it and why they won't ever get rid of it, because I know
There
they're
was always
capable,
the ally chart or something in the older editions.
and that's fine. Which brings up a great point. Age of Sigmar does it, and I like their system. So I wish they would just adopt Age of
Age of
Sigmar's.
Sigmar has its own very unique problems.
Yeah, which will be for a different episode. But yes, but I like their ally system. So I'll just leave that there because this actually segues into a good point, and the next thing I'd like to touch on is the leaks for Shadow Spear. Since we're talking about Chaos Marines, we've all seen the leaks by now. We've seen the images. I'm sure a lot of the people watching will have seen them by now because they've been flying all over the internet. But GW just released on their community page the full-on disclosure of everything. So I guess they saw that the leaks were out, so they decided to let everything loose. Um, I think everything's looking pretty cool. The one thing I am, uh, I want to say disappointed about, but I guess I can't really be too mad, is the fact that there are actually two mini codexes in this box, which means that more than likely, at least not soon,
It
Marines,
doesn't look like a 2.0. Yep.
yeah, Marines and a Chaos Space Marines are not getting a new updated book, which means I'm still stuck with a codex that, like, it's pretty much irrelevant at this point. Barring some data sheets, I mean, numerous data sheets have changed, stratagems have changed, points have changed, relics have changed, but I still have to carry that book around. And now I have another book I have to carry around. So, ah, I don't. My feelings about Shadow Spear are mixed currently. I don't know. What do you think, Wayne?
Well, I'm reading the article now. I mean, the fact that they say the book, the little booklet, is a full featured standalone
Mm-hmm.
makes me hopeful that they'll actually adjust things. I mean, they do say each is a fully fledged army book that'll work on its own, even if you don't possess Space Marines or Codex Chaos Space Marines. Although I recall that probably being similar to the ones in Dark Imperium.
Yeah, that could just mean that you could play with the things out of the box right away without
Right.
needing the codex. I mean,
Right. The next part, though, you'll find brand new warlord traits and psychic powers, rules for dedicating your army to a specific legion or chapter, and matched play points too. So,
ooh, that's that's interesting. I didn't read that part because I didn't have a chance to fully read this article yet. That's
right.
interesting. I
Well, I think it could be. I
could
mean,
could be interesting. I mean, if it's just a reprint of the old chapter tactics, I'm I'm gonna lose my shit
yeah,
I
because
I would I would expect fully that it's the old chapter tactics.
oh,
probably.
probably. But I don't want that to be the case because I want word bearers to get something different.
Don't get hope. Hope is the first step to disappointment. Remember.
I still like
I
how that's an
remember when
actual
Games
thought of the
Workshop
day.
said that Necrons were going to be super mobile, and I mean, we know how that turned out. They aren't breaking the speed record anytime soon. Maybe next year.
Didn't Reese say they were going to be good?
I think Reese said that they are already good during Index. So
Yeah.
He says a lot of things. I really like the. I've already talked about how much I like the one greater possessed. I really don't like the other one.
The crab
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
The Amusingly, that's also 3 pictures from the rumor engines at least, with
Y-
both hands and the foot. So he
Yeah.
doesn't really look that awesome compared to the other one.
Yeah. Looking at
That's weird.
a lot of the demon engines are actually all from this box, which is ridiculously disappointing in and of itself.
Oh,
But
I see the power fist on the second obliterator.
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
yeah, it's
That
uh,
is that power fist, isn't it?
yep.
Yeah, it is the power fist yet.
Well, there goes the idea for Terminators. Although, what somebody noted, somebody pointed out though that if you look at the Primaris, you can see where the guys are like the push fit, sort of the same pose. You don't see that on the Chaos guys, so there's a very slim chance that these are not in fact
I,
monopose.
I'm pretty sure that this box will be push fit, and they'll get their own separate kit later.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
it's
Me
probably
too.
like Dark Imperium, the Death
Yeah,
Guard versus Space Marines one.
yeah. I mean, the
But yeah,
models look awesome. I mean, but even the one greater possessed, I don't, I don't mind them. The obliterators look great, even though as far as the stats, which we'll get into, I believe is a shadow nerf. But I think all the models look fantastic. I mean, I'm really happy that the Master of Possession isn't a named character. It wasn't a repeat of Harkin. Um, he could be used in any legion, so I think that's definitely a plus.
That's gonna save him something.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to his powers because I know he's drawing from a different discipline, which is going to be in this book, I'm guessing. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it'll really depend on what his powers are because as he is, he's just a chaos sorcerer, bog standard chaos sorcerer with the ability to make your opponent perils easier.
Well, he
So
gets a demonic save, 5++ and vulnerable.
yeah, but
What
old sorcerer's got an invuln too.
Do they?
Yeah.
Ah, I
I
got nothing
think
then.
so. What I'm wondering though is how much of that is gonna trickle down to the other 2 Special Legion codexes. Like, do I get access to those sweet Venom crawlers or not?
Um,
You mean with Emperor's Children and World Eaters when they eventually show up, or what? Oh no, you mean Death Guard and Thousand Suns.
no,
Yeah,
yeah,
those 2.
he mean,
Together.
Probably not.
he means the less important legions.
Probably not, because they specifically say what
You're
you can
just
take.
jealous.
Thousand Sons, do they get access to the Mauler Fiend and the Forge Fiend?
Yes, they have access to basically all Demon Forged ones.
Then
So,
they'll probably get access to the Venom Crawler.
I would hope so. Well, I mean, wait to see
Wayne,
how the.
Wayne, you play Death Guard, right?
Yep.
Do they have access to possessed obliterators and the Mauler Fiend and stuff?
Possessed, but nothing else. They have their own demonic engines. They don't get no Obliterators, no Mauler Fiend, no Forge Fiend, no Helldrake, no
Okay.
Defiler.
Okay, so you probably won't get obliterators
Yeah,
and the Demon Forge, but you might get the Greater Possessed.
maybe. I mean, it depends on how they want to work them.
Yeah, I mean, the Greater Possessed would be really good in a Nurgle army. I feel like he would buff all your demon engines. Plus one strength on bloat drones with strength user flamers is pretty significant.
That is pretty significant.
That
Yeah,
would also stack with the Heralds, so
you
+2.
you didn't think about that, did you?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
Mm, some sources.
a lot of those Death Guard weapons are strength users, so he would directly buff you in a lot of ways. And I mean, it's not like he's a tax to take either, because he's a beat stick in and of himself. So I think if you get access to him, I think he would do absolute wonders for Death Guard. That's for sure.
He could.
Is the plague spitters on the uh the crawler are they strength user as well?
I believe they are.
Yeah, so he could just run up with 2 plague crawlers. Man. Yeah, that
That
sounds.
would be interesting.
Yeah, that sounds pretty damn good because they're what, strength 6 base?
I'm pulling it up on Battlescribe. I don't have access to my codex at the moment.
Yeah, let me know because if they're strength 6, that bumps them up to 7, and now they're wounding. They have flamers now that are wounding pretty much all flyers and most vehicles on 4s, which is
They
pretty.
are strength 7 with no wounds, and it goes down to 5.
Wow. So they would go up to strength 8. So now your flamers are
Yep.
hitting most, are wounding most vehicles on 3s if they get access to this buff. I mean,
Yep.
granted, you could already kind of do that with Nurgle Heralds, I believe, because they give +1 strength as well.
If those stack, though.
They will, because they're different things.
Yeah,
Oh
they're different
boy.
things. So you could actually get +2 strength between those two things, and now your flamers are strength 9. You're welcome, Wayne.
Imagine putting them with a Demon Prince with talons.
You
Yeah,
know
and then
what I'm thinking right now?
giving him diabolic strength, so he has like 20 billion attacks hitting at strength 10.
You're thinking Magnus did nothing wrong, but that's not right.
No, that is absolutely right, but I'm actually thinking Exalted with dual swords, diabolic strength, and buffed by a herald and that guy.
Does the
Uh,
Exalted have the demon keyword?
yes, on the disc.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, if he takes the disc, he gets the demon keyword.
So that
Ooh,
would be 4, 6, 8, strength 10, 6 or 7 attacks with rend -3 and d3 damage, I think.
interesting.
Or no, it was 1 damage. Sorry, it's just power, so it's not 4 swords. But dang,
That sounds
that
tasty.
I
Yeah,
have Chaos Smash Captain right there.
I mean,
Right.
well, great. Now we're gonna get
So
nerfed.
the new character gives +1 strength.
Yeah, he gives +1 strength to
That's very
anything.
strong.
Yeah, with any,
And for shooting weapons,
if they're strength
or is this
user.
strength of the attacks? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Um,
not shooting weapons.
well, some shooting weapons, because like I said, Death Guard shooting weapons, a lot of them are strength user.
Yeah.
So it's interesting for a lot of demon, chaos and demon shooting because we have so much strength user ranged weaponry. I'm pretty sure the skull cannon might be similar. I think it's like user plus, but I don't remember. Um, it opens up a lot of tactical possibilities because, like I was saying before, the Greater Possessed is also a character. So if I gotta find what my notes here. Yeah, they've got 5 wounds apiece, so they can be hidden. Strength 5, toughness 5, 5 attacks. That's a lot of attacks, and they're hitting at strength 6 with their own buff. That's quite a lot of attacks, but the big thing about them is they're tanky enough that you could throw them into a group of infantry, say, on the front lines. Now, he's a character. He's locked in combat. I know summoning isn't used much right now, but nothing about demonic ritual says that you can't be in combat and use it. You just can't move. So he can sit in the front lines with a horde of possessed with him. Sit there on the front lines and just keep summoning demons 9 inches behind him. As long as they're 9 inches away from the enemy and within 12 of you, you can just keep summoning hordes of demons with him the longer he stays up there on the front line. So if you put aside enough points, you could plop 30 bloodletters right behind you, and then they could charge in too. You've kind of got this self-invigorating front line that you could kind of create with him, and with his buff, he's making the possessed better, he's making the bloodletters better, and if you have a venom crawler up there with him, we don't know how many attacks the venom crawler has yet, and it's still for
One thing though,
yeah.
his aura is supposedly Mark of Chaos and Legion, so it wouldn't need to be the same allegiance as him.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever demons you're summoning would
Yeah.
you would summon the same ones.
Right.
But um where was I? Yeah, you're
Sorry.
summoning no, you're fine. You're summoning those demons. You've got the possessed, you've got let's say bloodletters, everybody's corn. Depending on the stats for the venom crawler too, he seems like he can be decent if he's the right price. My initial impressions of him are disappointing, but if he's cheap enough, he could be a decent frontline bruiser. So him up there as well, buffing your summoning really adds a lot of tactical depth to being able to summon demons forward instead of having to keep key heroes back like people would have to do because your hero can't move. So you're usually either choosing to not move a hero and summon or keep him where he needs to be because often you need sorcerers to be casting spells, you need them in range of things, you want your demonic heralds following their fellow demons to buff them, so you can't really normally afford to not move. But where the greater possessed kind of fits in is he can wedge himself into combat, stay alive long enough, and just pop demons out behind him, which I think, or even behind the enemy line if it's thin enough. As long as you can make that 9-inch bubble, you can start spilling demons into the back line of your opponent, which I think is an interesting direction that hasn't been tactically viable yet. I think it opens up a kind of a different way to play Chaos right now, which I think is interesting.
And I think that Venom Crawler, that has a lot of the strength user on it.
Yeah, I think it does actually.
It has strength plus
Yeah.
2 for the melee weapons and strength user for his guns.
Okay, so if it has Demon Mark and you give it the
Yep.
+1 possessed strength, I guess that'd do pretty well. You'd have a lot of. You said he's what, strength 6?
The greater possessed is strength 6.
Yeah. The Venom Crawler.
The Venom Crawler is
Strength 6
actually
base, yeah.
and
so
it's
you give him
+2.
strength 9 assault shots and
Yeah.
his strength 8 or 9 just regular attacks with that buff, right?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is his attacks aren't known yet, which is really what's going to depend on his viability. But my sweet spot for him right now is six attacks with his normal weapon, and then he gets the 2 extra, because that would put 6. If he's near a greater possessed, that would put him at 6 strength 9. Yeah, strength 9 hits in melee, and then 2 strength 7 hits, which are still good at wounding most vehicles. At that point, especially if he's your only demon engine in the list, you can stack things like Demon Forged and what's the other one? Blasphemous Machines. You can stack those stratagems on him and really push the hurt because unfortunately he's still weapon skill 4, so he's not hitting as well as most of the rest of the army, but stacking those buffs, and you could give him pre-science, so stacking those buffs on him will really kind of push him over the top.
Yeah, I think just depending on the whatever he costs. I know you said you're underwhelmed by it, but I think synergy-wise,
Yeah,
I don't think it looks that bad.
The way I look at units are if I'm not one to say that things aren't usable. I consider something good if I can consider it good on its own merits first, and then what it brings to the group as far as synergy goes. I feel like if you need 4 or 5 different things to make a unit decent, I'm hesitant to call it good because there are things that are good that could take those 4 or 5 things as well and be even better. So that's kind of where my hang up comes with this unit.
I guess it'd still have an invuln save, and you'd be able to.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say a lot of it depends on the points, and a lot of it depends on the number of attacks. Because if the attacks are, to me, if the attacks are anything less than 6, say they're 4, you could take a Mauler Fiend, and especially if it's not. A Mauler Fiend is 135 points. You know exactly how many attacks you're getting. You're getting 6 from the Lasher Tendrils, and you're getting his 4 fists. Those fists are already hitting at strength 12, and the tendrils are going to be hitting at strength 7 with a buff. So you know exactly what you're getting out of him. He's hitting harder. He's wounding more vehicles on 2s than the Venom Crawler will be, and he benefits from the same range of buffs. So if he's competing with the same function as the Mauler Fiend, yeah, he's going to lose out unless you're building your army around summoning. At that point, the Venom Crawler only becomes good in that one build, and then I'm hesitant to call him good because he's only good if you build around him, and he's not good on his own merit. Now, if he's 100 points and he has 6 attacks, yeah, they might not be as strong, but he's versatile enough that you can warrant taking him over the more expensive Mauler Fiend, do somewhat of the same job, but he opens up a different tactical avenue. So he kind of finds a niche. That's where I think the sweet spot's going to be.
What I think if he's cheap enough, like yeah, 100 points, maybe a little bit lower, he can make a very well decent poor man's Molafine maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm thinking
yeah,
100 point area is his sweet spot. Anything more than that,
and he's
you're
gonna infringe on that Molafine position, and
yeah,
he's gonna lose out. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah,
That
because nothing about his synergy is exclusive to him. Any demon any demon engine can get that buff.
yeah.
It does have a gun now.
It does, but
Let's see what
te-
that.
On a Demon Forge ballistic skill,
yeah, technically so does the Mauler Fiend if I wanted to. But I mean it's
you never know with
uh,
magma cutters.
Maybe cost.
it's all going to come down to one, the final cost, two, the malefic powers that come with the master of possession, and three, the points cost. So, and the number of attacks. That's and then I could kind of work out where its niche is going to be in a list. Other than
Similar.
that, eh,
I feel it'll be about 120, about what the Mythic Blight Hauler is, because it's a similar type of beastie.
yeah, it'll. I mean, for people wanting to build around the summoning mechanic, it'll obviously be what they take instead of the Mauler Fiend. Other than that, I think on damage output, you're better off going with something else at that price point. So,
I would agree.
yeah. Um, Obliterators are something that really has me feeling a certain way because I've been wanting new Obliterator models for a long time, and I got them. I'm very happy with them. I like the new Obliterators a lot. I actually like their rules, and I think they're okay, but I don't think people are really doing the math on them because they're not. A lot of people think they're buffed because they see that they got an extra toughness, they got two more shots, but they're not, and they got an extra wound. But their power level rose dramatically. The way we don't know the exact points cost yet, so a lot of this is going off of estimations. If the obliterators are right now estimated to be between 110 and 130 points. I can tell you right now that if obliterators are costed at 130 points, that is a significant nerf because three of the old obliterators were 195 points. Two, if you let's split the difference and make them 115. At 115 per for the new ones, you're looking at 230 points for two of the new ones. Two of the new ones have 12 shots. Three of the old ones have 12 shots. The new ones have one extra toughness, but the old ones have one more wound because they have three bodies. The new ones have 8 between two, and the new ones have 12 between three. So, for roughly the same cost, you're for the same output rather, you have the same output of offense, but you're paying 40 points more. That's actually a significant points increase. That like, if somebody were to go to like you pickle, if somebody were to all of a sudden grab the Doomsday Arc and raise it 40 points, you'd feel a certain way about that, right? I think that'd be pretty significant.
Uh, well, I think that destroyers are kind of a good example for it because they're very very similar in role.
Yeah,
So if you took destroyers, gave him an extra attack and an extra toughness or something, and raised them a wound, then I would really need to see what sort of synergy they have. I think obliterators, the new ones, I think that they're better if you take max
yeah,
and you take one unit of max and your slash because you get the company
yeah,
and that will give you a little more bang for your buck.
yeah.
Depends on points.
It's super expensive. Yeah, it really depends on points because you're looking at it on a cost to efficiency ratio. How much bang am I getting for my buck? Because right now, as it sits based off the estimations, you're getting the same output out of two new obliterators as the three got, but you're paying roughly anywhere between 30 and 60 points more for them just because they gained shitty power fists, which when you start thinking about it in that regard, obliterators very rarely ended up in melee anyway. They had 24-inch guns. You can deep strike them 24 inches away and shoot things. I mean, very rarely did my obliterators ever end up in melee. They never really needed the fists. I don't like paying a premium for a weapon I'm not going to use, especially one that raises their price by that much. I mean, now if they're, to me, again, I'll talk about sweet spots. Their sweet spot for me is about 100 points per. If they're 100 points per and it comes out for 200 for two, I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't mind paying the extra 5 points for an access to emergency, uh, what essentially comes down to power axes. Um,
How many points are they now?
um, three are currently 195 total.
395.
So if new obliterators, because they could be taken in units of 1 to 3, if new ones are 100 points per, that'll put them at 200 points for two of them, which is the equivalent output of obliterators currently.
I'd expect them to be somewhere between 110 and 115, honestly.
Yeah, even then, they're still going to see play, but it's going to be considered a nerf. I mean,
I don't think it's going to be considered a nerf because most people are like competitively you're going to take endless cacophony because that's just really good.
yeah,
Something that shoots that much.
yeah. I mean, you could. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but it's going to be a nerf from how they were because you're getting the points to shot ratio becomes off because you could have got the same output for 15 points less. You could have put those 15 points elsewhere. I mean, something could still be good and still get nerfed. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with them. Um, if anything,
How?
I think it's going to be a side grade.
But if they shoot twice, then it's not a nerf because you're getting more shots for less points.
Are we talking about
It's
two of them, or are we
incredibly
talking about three of them?
confusing anyway.
Are we talking about a full unit of them, or are we talking about three of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 versus the equivalent for
Yeah.
old obliterators, which is what 6, 5?
It'll be something like that. I mean, that's the only time that you are correct. I mean, if you take a full unit of them, and again, it's going to depend on the point cost, how much it actually costs to take all three. If it's massive, it might not be deemed worth it. You might be able to get something else for it. I don't know yet. I have to see the actual points. If you only had 200 points to work with, you can't just slot. You can't take old obliterators out the way you ran them before in a list and plug the new ones in. You have to adjust things in your list. So it's going to depend, to take a full unit of obliterators, it's going to depend on people's current lists and what they have to take out now in order to fit them. I think that's what's going to depend on if they're better or not. Their ceiling is much higher. Um, I think taking one is pointless. I don't think it leverages the buffs enough. But two is the statistical equivalent of their old ones. So it's really going to depend on um, how much three of them cost, whether it's worth reaching their ceiling. Because unless you're taking three, I don't think they're as worth it as they were. I could still see groups of two, obviously, because it's not that much of a points nerf that's going to make them unplayable. Obliterators were already insanely good. They're still going to be good. Um, I think it's going to depend on how much three of them cost, which is going to determine whether or not I think of this as a buff, a nerf, or a side grade. Right now, I'm in the camp of a side grade. I think they're becoming more modular. They're gaining some things and giving up some things. So I'm waiting to see how they shake out. And again, it'll also depend on what's in this new codex. There could be
Yeah, I'll
powers.
bet dollars to donuts that there's a stratagem for every single unit that's in the codex except maybe basic Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, yeah, I can absolutely see that. And then you got Vigilus coming out too, which is undoubtedly going to have a Demonkin specialist formation. So, I mean, it's all up in the air at this
People
point.
literally riot in the streets, and I'll report it.
um, so those are my thoughts on chaos. What do you think, Wayne? You're the other chaos guy here. What do you think about everything?
I think I think you're right with the obliterators. Like,
Well,
we
I know
know
I'm
their
right.
points are going to go up.
I'm always right.
Right. Well, we know their points are going to go up. I don't mind them making the unit size variable again because they used to be 1 to 3, and then
Yeah.
for some reason they're like, oh, they're just 3.
Well, they're going back to form in a lot of ways. I mean, they gave them back fists. change the unit size. So they're definitely trying to go back to form with them. It's just how that will translate into the game, I think, is yet to be seen.
Yeah, I think the question with that's going to be, if they're getting fists, are they going to rework mutilators?
Well, I mean, the Mutilator fists are a lot better. These ones are just strength plus one, AP something, I forget, and then like what D3 damage. They're not really that impressive. So, uh,
They're not, but
I mean,
it'd be interesting
I
to
could,
see.
I could see it being a dual kit. I'd be ecstatic if the Obliterators could make Mutilators out of the box. That'd be awesome.
I think that's going to happen if they get released in a multi-part. It would be really, really stupid for them to not make
Well,
those
well,
kits compatible.
well. See, I think that well, I don't know if I really agree with this because the Obliterators are coming in a group of two in Shadow Spear. I'd imagine a full-fledged box would have three, but then again, it's not like GW to, put out a full kit. I can see them not putting out the full three in a kit to make you buy
Well,
more. But
I imagine it'd be two, and then they'll change mutilators to be 1 to 3 also.
yeah, in a lot of these boxes though, the Marines, the troops tend to be monopose, but the big things actually tend to be multi-part. So there could be a chance that the Obliterator kit could be the multi-part kit, and we just haven't seen Mutilators yet. I mean, I don't know. There's so much that still needs to be revealed. I know in that article today they're talking about how tomorrow there's going to be a big unboxing. So I guess we'll know tomorrow for sure, and then throughout the week, um, the rest of the
I
chaos stuff is getting revealed.
I think if they would put a multi-part kit in there with like both parts being new, they would have told us so
Yeah.
far already. So
Maybe
that's my point.
there's also
So yeah,
rumors that the Venom Crawler is going to be multi-part eventually too. So because of
Well, we do have. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. From the rumors, we still have. There's another chain axe,
yep,
which I think is going to be the multi-part chaos kit, with a marine kit.
I hope it's
There's going to
Berserkers.
It could be. It could be.
it's it's not.
It's not until World Eaters. But there's a heavy bolter. There's a different power fist. The power fist on that obliterator is not the power fist that they showed on the Demon Ancient.
Yeah.
There's a lightning claw looking thing.
Yep.
There's chain glaive, which is what's throwing me for a loop.
Yeah, that's the big reason why I can't commit too because I could go Night Lords at any moment if they decide to tell me where that chain glaive is from.
Yeah, I
Right.
was gonna say it kind of looked like the ones on the Forge World site that just got updated.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot that still needs to be seen. I mean, you've got that gun from that looks like it's from the back of the Venom Crawler, but a lot of people have said it's not from a Venom Crawler. But the other interesting thing is, in a lot of the artwork for the box set, people have pointed out that there is an image of a Chaos Marine with a Meltagun, which
that
is
is in, I think.
it's not in the box as
It's
it's
a plasma gun in the box.
yeah, it's a
Oh,
plasma gun in the box. There is a clear
right.
Meltagun in the photographs, so that's why a lot of people are kind of holding on to hope that the Chaos Marine kit is actually multi-part with a suggested loadout as opposed to completely monopose because it has been shown you see the autocannon and then you see the plasma gun but also in the background you clearly see a meltagun so it's is that part of the new
Remember
kit.
the Primaris release, they had the Primaris intercessors, and they just had bolt rifles, and then the full kit had the other options as well as the auxiliary grenade launcher.
Yeah,
I
So it
wouldn't
could
put it
be
past.
something like that, and it's probably going to be something like that.
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
mean
that's
that
my idea.
that's what I'm preparing my heart for, but I mean you never know.
Right.
I can hold on to some hope.
They do look really cool though, as a non-primary 40k player.
Oh, I think they look awesome. I mean, I'm gonna get them regardless because I'm trash and I'll buy
And
things
this is
that
the
look
first
cool.
time I'll say it. Even this regular Space Marines or Primaris Marines, even they look pretty. And you know what I think. And you know what I think about Space Marines.
I do. I mean, they look just like Stormcast, right?
Yeah, except puffier. No, they look good. Like there's a lot more articulations and everything on them, and looks like they're coming down with like 50 cal machine.
Yeah, I want to know how the hell they're going to fire those
Special
autocannons
option.
midair.
The backpacks actually aren't used; they just sort of fly in the air for the kickback.
Really? Never mind. You were making a joke. I get it now. Okay. Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm just imagining a bunch of like space marines just like screaming at the top of their lungs for the Emperor, and they're just firing off the autocannon in every direction, and they're just flying all over the place. Can't really control where they're going, but I mean, I do think they look cool. I mean, Pickle, you play Primaris. Are you planning on getting them?
Uh, I don't really like the jump pack guys or the basic troop guys. They look kind of the troop guys look a little silly. The librarian is really silly.
I love the Librarian. I think he looks sick.
He's just
I love that
you made
cloak.
me use 10% of my power, nothing personnel, kid.
He's, you're 10 years too
See,
soon to
that makes
challenge
him
me,
awesome.
kid.
Yeah, he loops back around from being silly, goes back to being awesome.
He's gone full
New
circle.
lieutenant is probably the silliest kid there. He has the knife and the backup knife.
Yeah, which one is he? Is he the one in the
Yeah, he's the black guy next to the captain.
The one on
there
the
we
left,
go.
big picture.
I like him.
He got 2 knives. That's kind of okay.
The
He's
sniper
got the backup knife.
the
The
sniper
snipers look really nice though.
Yeah, they
Hopefully
do look
that's
really
a
nice.
talented option.
I mean, I like the troops too. I think their guns look cool. The
Yeah.
one thing that's kind of
I really like how they're trying to bridge the gap between the people who hated the new helmet designs and wanted to go back to the old ones, because he looks sort of like the old ones.
yeah.
It's a combo deal.
Yeah, the one thing that's throwing me off, I know you said you don't like the flying guys. The one thing that's throwing me off about them is it's like um the autocannons the way the entire setup of those models doesn't make sense to me because it's clear that they don't have jump packs on, they have grab shoots. So this is actually an action shot of them falling. They're not actually flying.
They have a 12
But
inch
they
movement
move.
though.
Yeah, they move as if they fly. Don't they fly?
I think with a 12-inch movement, they are likely gonna have the fly keyword. So
Yeah, but like,
there's no way around it. They're jump pack units.
yeah, I know they're jump pack units,
Yeah,
but
they have jump pack, they have fly.
the way they look though, it looks because they don't have jump packs on. It's like why are they in the air? It almost looks weird.
I think it's anti-grav tech.
Yeah,
Like in
yeah,
the
it is.
Pulsar.
It's just
That's
like
probably gonna be it.
grab shoots were always kind of like a Scions thing. Seeing them on Marines is kind of weird. I'm so used to seeing jump packs that it's like
Reavers had them already.
I know Reavers had them already, and nobody likes Reavers.
Well,
I've met a few people who think Reavers look really cool. And you know what? They're entitled to their opinion.
They're very wrong opinion.
they look okay.
You know, some people
They're
like
garbage to play.
Thousand Sons, Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, and what do you play, Oliver?
I did play AdMech. I'm doing guard now.
And Admech. You know, what people with patrician taste?
I mean, I hate people who play Thousand Sons, man. They're like the
Fight
worst.
me.
They're like the worst kind of people. The only thing worse than a person who plays Thousand Sons is a person who can't decide what they want to play ever at all in any game. Wayne. Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Right.
I don't know. Besides the flying guys, I think they look super cool, and I think their rules are gonna be awesome in a Raven Guard army. I mean, they fit thematically, and the rules match up perfectly. They're gonna be nigh unkillable.
I'm not so sure that any of the units are super duper good. The librarian depends on his powers. He could either be super good or just alright.
Well, the
He
snipers.
gets
Raven
the
squads
camo
will
cloak.
probably, you might see these a few times. Their anti-deep strike aura is nice, and they do get the forward deployment, so they're sort of like primary scouts. But,
Yeah.
Scouts already are a thing.
What I'm kinda amused about
Squad,
is
autocannons are nice, but they're tied to a toughness 4 unit.
Yeah, with
It makes it
2
it makes it
wounds.
kind of a hard sell, especially since they're what? It depends on how much they're costed. If they're 30 points per, you'll probably see them.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Carmen?
What I'm amused about is that we have at least 2 units with a 1+ save and cover.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't have a 1+ save, but
So good.
Yeah, I mean, you ignore the first level of rent on
yeah.
everything, and yeah, it's
Well,
kind of amusing.
the other thing that I don't think is getting quite enough attention is the fact that the infiltrators have an apothecary built into their unit. I mean,
All right, they have that. I forgot
that's
about that.
that's kind of a big deal on a multi-wound unit just to have an apothecary in there that could just bring guys back from Marines. I mean,
You gotta you gotta get 10 to get that though. So
yeah,
Uh,
but
I think you can combat squad them.
yeah, I mean, and even if you don't, I mean, there's no reason not. I mean, you could take 10. Space Marines very rarely die to morale with all the shit they have. I mean, I see.
Renars even less with the 2 wounds per model.
God, you got 10 of them sitting in cover on an objective. How hard is it going to be to move that unit?
they don't have the cloaks.
Oh, they don't have the cloaks.
No.
No, those don't. But we don't know what Phobos armor does yet.
Yeah, well, it would have said on the. It would have said on the thing.
I'm not sure if I
But
saw that info yet.
in infiltrator squads, they have a 12-inch no fly zone on deep striking. That's huge. They can bring back guys. Yeah, they can pop smoke and they can infiltrate. So they can infiltrate on when they come in, they can pop onto any um, objective they want and just sit there. I mean, and depending on the powers of the librarian, he could probably give them a camo cloak equivalent with a spell. I see them being, I see them being a new mainstay troops choice, just based off what I'm seeing. It's going to depend on the points, and it's going to depend on the librarian somewhat. But I think just on their own merit, if their points are nice, I'd say what are intercessors right now? 17, 16?
16 personally.
Okay, if these guys are like 17 or 18, I think they're auto include. I think they do too much tactically to leave them at home.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a bunch of armies build around them. I don't think you'll see the medics very often. I do think you'll see them.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see it because I think on a 2 wound apiece model unit, the medic is too good. I mean, I didn't actually read. Is it still a 4 up to bring things back?
Uh,
Oh, it's a 5 up, which is still pretty good, but okay. 5 up tempers it a little bit, but if it was still a 4 up, whoo wee. I mean,
I
that
mean,
that
even a 5 up, that's pretty good.
it
He
is
can
pretty
reroll with
good.
his command point. It's
You're getting back 2 wounds every time you get that off. I mean,
yeah.
it's interesting. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities, and I think it gives them the chance that they might actually see play competitively. Because I do think they're good at the main thing of competitive, which is grabbing objectives and sitting on them. So, and it keeps people away from the objectives. You can't deep strike a unit to go clear somebody off an objective, because now they have to make a 12-inch charge. So, I don't know. Just something interesting to think about moving forward as far as Primaris are concerned. But yeah, so these are the leaks. We've got more coming tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more good stuff. I'm really interested to see the new Chaos stuff coming out. Um, Next week's episode, we're going to be going over Skaven. And Dennis, I know you've been playing Skaven now for a little while. You said you got a couple low point games in, so I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on the Skaven book moving forward. And hopefully, by the time we wheel back around to 40K, uh, we'll be able to talk about the full catalog of releases that are coming out for Chaos, hopefully. So that's kind of where we're at for today. Do you guys have any final thoughts on anything we've seen, anything we spoke about? Wayne, do you feel any certain way about any sort of controversial topic?
Not at the moment.
So we could save your rants for another episode?
Yeah, that'll require a full episode.
Yeah, we're gonna have the ITC one pretty soon, so
Oh boy.
that'll be fun for you. I don't know, Dennis, you got anything you want to add?
Wayniak's wrong.
I
You're
mean,
wrong.
he's wrong sometimes, but not
He's wrong all the time, man.
not
I'm gonna throw it out there. Get
not
that hot take. We haven't had a hot take yet.
yeah, well, it's I don't know. I feel like today's was pretty hot. We got a good talking about the soup precursor to the soup debate. Um, that can get much more in depth. I think that'll be a good debate to have alongside the ITC episode. That'll just be an absolute shit show, which personally I can't wait for. So,
I bring
I'd agree.
popcorn.
yeah, yeah, that should be fantastic. But next week, Skaven, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Rob, Karaman, Wayne. Love having you guys on here. It's been great talking to y'all. I love arguing with you guys all the time. I know we argue in Discord all the time, so really we just get to bring our Discord shenanigans to recording, which is awesome. It's a lot of fun. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you all out there for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one, y'all.